Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Reforged podcast. My name is Drew and it's a pleasure to be speaking with you. Today's episode, we're going to be continuing our series on miracles that Jesus performed. Today, talking about Jesus' feeding of the 5,000. Thank you for continuing on and listening to this series with me. Hope that you've all been having a great week. If there are any prayer requests that you have, but before we get the show started, I'd like to open that up, invite you to leave those prayer requests in the comment section of the YouTube show or the Spotify show. Just let us know what that is that we can be praying for you as a community and on this show. We would be happy to do that. Another thing I want to say is I apologize for missing last week's episode. Things got a little bit busy and out of hand, but I'm glad to be back with you this week and hope to get back on schedule. So without spending any more time, let's just get straight into it. So we're going to be reading the story of, again, Jesus feeding the 5,000, and we're going to be reading that out of John chapter 6, starting in verse 1. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, and a great crowd of people followed him there because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another one of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up, "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who came into the world." Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. So it's a really powerful passage because it really shows the way that God and also Christ are able to provide in very miraculous ways, especially in circumstances when ordinary men, people don't think that anything can be done. There are a couple key points that I want to make sure I touch on, as well as anything else that will just come to mind. The first being, yeah, that idea that God is a provider. He provides for us. He meets our needs when we have them. Now, sometimes God may be providing for our needs, the things that we're asking for, the things that we're aware that we need, um, whether it be basic things like food or shelter, or security, or if it's emotional needs in relationships, or something else. If we need something deeper, more core to ourselves, like seeking purpose or seeking fulfillment or seeking joy. Um, but there are also times that we come to God and we know we need help, but we don't know exactly what we need. And there's also times that we come to God and we think we know what we need, but we really don't. And the great thing that is true about our God is that He will meet all of our needs, regardless as if we ask for them or not, regardless if we know what we need or not. The great thing is that God actually knows us better than we know ourselves. And so God is always providing us exactly what we need. And we just need to choose to recognize that, to see how God is molding us and shaping us through our situations, through our circumstances, how God is meeting our needs and providing us with blessings. Um, I just the other week was um, doing a lot of prep work for different tests that I have coming up in college, and it was trying to get me down because I just felt overwhelmed and stressed out. But then I thought about how God has given me this great opportunity to be at school and to learn all these things. And even though it's hard work, it's ultimately going to be good, fulfilling work because it's going to help me learn about the things I want to learn and do the things I want to do with my life and what I believe He's called me into, the passions He's given me. And also knowing that whenever I get too stressed out, if it's because I'm putting too much weight or I'm putting my identity, like putting who I am into my work, um, I don't need to do that because Jesus already provides me my identity, and that is a follower of Christ. He already tells me who I am, that I'm beautiful and worthy of love in His eyes, and to the point where He died a sinner's death on a cross for my behalf. And that's something really powerful. So, really drawing close to that truth these past couple of weeks, it's really changed my way of thinking. It's really made me feel a lot more positive, even in hard times. I'm doing hard work, knowing that, hey, this is like God's got it all worked out, and this is a struggle for me right now, but nothing's a struggle for God. And I just got to work hard through this challenging time because it's an opportunity to be faithful to God and to be able to do well in the situation that He's put me in. And that can be hard to do because, as I mentioned, usually God comes through in major ways. He comes through in these times where we don't expect it, seemingly desperate circumstances when there's no way. I mean, in the case of the feeding the 5,000, the disciples recognize how sparse their resources are, you know, just, crumbs compared to the amount of people that they have to feed, and they think nothing can be done. And when Jesus asks them to feed these people, he already knows what He's going to do. He already knows, hey, I'm going to provide in a really big, powerful, miraculous way right now. But He invites the disciples to be part of that, and they're very hung up on what they see as the reality of the situation. What they see as, we don't have the resource to do this. Do you want us to buy food? We don't have that much money. Plus, how do we get it all there? Do you want us to just split up this little bit of food that we have? That's not really going to make a difference. And again, it's in these times where to man it seems impossible that God can really move in some powerful ways. Um, I think it's important, as even Jesus, Son of God, God Himself, recognizes it's important to give glory to God and to recognize the times that He comes through like this, because when Jesus performs this miracle of feeding the 5,000, what He does is He takes the loaves of bread and then He gives thanks to God. And He asks the Lord to bless the food and to make it plentiful, make it satisfying and filling for the people there. And He ends up being able to give everyone as much as they want to eat and then also have some more leftover extra, which I think is just a hilarious touch because maybe hilarious isn't the right word. It's not just funny, but it's like it's very like Jesus, to take a situation where man is doubting either Him or God's provision, and then just flipping on its head, saying, "All right, well, I'll take care of the situation and then some." You know, like he obviously knows like He could have made exactly enough food to go around, but He decided, just to be a little bit more, just to be a little extra. I'm gonna make leftovers too, and that's really cool. Um, so yeah, whenever we have times in our life where we're asking God for things, or um, we're in a struggling situation and we want God to move, even if we don't know how, it's important to think back on those times. And when we get out of those times, to actually give God thanks and recognize that He's brought us out, because it would be very easy for me to write off any week in school that I'm having a tough time and it's a lot of work and it's tiring and taxing. It'd be really easy to just say, God, you know, release me from this. Give me comfort and peace. Calm my nerves and lighten my workload. And then when that comes, just be like, sweet, I'm in the good season now, and that's it. And we forget that part of asking God for provision and for help in our lives is that when we ask Him for something, giving him thanks when he actually ends up coming through it's really important. Obviously, we want to thank God for when he's a blessing onto us. We want to recognize that. And it's very easy for us to just ask for things and expect them and get them and act like nothing's different. So really make sure um, that we should be taking some time to do that. And I know too, it's a blessing to me to be thankful to God. Whenever I come to God with gratitude and thank Him for all the ways that He's been moving my life, I don't just get an opportunity to thank God, but also it forces me to think about all the ways He's been moving. So sometimes I'll think of ways that I didn't even think about. I wouldn't have otherwise recognized God moving. It's just, I think, what ways have God been moving? As I think hard, as I reflect, I notice new things. Sorry for the change of scenery. The place I was recording ended up closing, so I had to move it. But I was saying that the I'll notice new things, things that I wouldn't have otherwise thought about when I'm reflecting on things I'm grateful to God for. Like I'll see Him moving in different ways. But another thing is too, it fills me with joy. It fills me with joy to be able to recognize how God and where God has been moving in my life, and to give Him praise and glory for that. Um, it helps me grow in my faith. It helps me live a more joyful life, be more appreciative of the life I've been given, and it really is just a blessing. So it's definitely important to be doing that. The final thing, though, that I want to talk about before I end today's episode is a point that is sometimes overlooked. In fact, one of the reasons that I picked specifically to read John chapter 6 for this story is because it includes this important detail that in some of the Gospels isn't included. And it's in verse 9. This is Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, speaking here. He says, "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many?" Now, I really like this part of the verse because it's really important. This young boy who was in a group of 5,000 hungry people, he apparently is the only one who came with any food, um, you know, and he could very easily say, "Well, I was smart and I came with food," or I was blessed to have food right now," and he could very well enjoy it all to himself. But instead, he decided, you know, the disciples are looking for food. I know it's not much, but I'm going to give it up to God. Can we imagine what it must have been like for that boy to give up his meal to the disciples, then also to watch the miraculous work that they ended up doing with it? I mean, it would have been so easy, and we find ourselves in situations all the time as humans where we get hung up on the fact that, God, are you asking me to give up something of my own? Are you asking me to give up something that I have? Are you asking me to give up my fishes and loaves? Are you asking me to get rid and give up my blessing that I have right here? Well, yeah, in this story, yes. And I think it's important to recognize we sometimes forget. In this mindset, we think, God, we have these, whatever it is, resources. We have either this time or this money or this tool or something. There's something that we have that we're really grateful to have and is a blessing and an asset to us. And we can even recognize, like, hey, God, you gave this to me as a gift. You gave this to me as a blessing, and thank you, Lord, for that. But then sometimes God will ask us to turn around and give it up to Him. And then we get defensive and we get possessive and we forget very quickly that we were just thanking God because we recognize that what we have is a blessing from Him. And instead we say, well, God, I don't want to give up what I have. Like, this is mine. I rightfully earn and deserve it. Even if that's not the case and not true. That's what we like to claim. We like to try to justify why we have what we have and justify why we shouldn't have to get rid of it or give it up. But with that, we miss the opportunities that God's actually using the ways that He's blessed us to bless others. And that's what this boy recognized was that, you know, I don't understand how what I have is going to be enough for all these people. That's another thing that we can tell ourselves. God, I have something to give, but ultimately it's not going to make a difference. So I might as well just keep it to myself. But this boy recognized, it may not make sense to me, but I feel as if I am supposed to give up what I have in this moment and trust that some good will come of it. And then God performed a miracle. Christ performed a miracle. He multiplied that bread and he multiplied those fish into multiple, just absolutely defying all expectations from anyone and being able to feed an entire group of 5,000 people with just that. And this story is so important because that's exactly what Jesus can do with us is he can take the little things, the seemingly little things that we have in our minds, the inadequate, and as long as we're faithful in giving it up to him and allowing him to work through it, he can perform miracles with it. He can multiply that gift, multiply that blessing. And the other thing I want us to notice too is like we're going to be blessed in return for doing that too. So even if we're thinking from a selfish mindset, like this boy obviously was fed just as much as everyone else was, and then there was leftovers, and it's possible that he got the leftovers because it was really his too. Like God took what he thought was just a little for him, just to sustain him, and he gave it up to God, and then God turned that into a surplus to bless a multitude of people, and then had extra left over. And I feel like I'm not articulating it as well as I want to, but that's exactly what we as Christians need to be doing. We need to be willing to recognize what God has blessed us with in life, how He's provided for us. Be willing to actually give that up to God and say, how can these blessings be a blessing upon others? How can we fulfill the covenant that you gave to Abraham, that your nation, your people will be a blessing to others as well? And and then use that and watch as God works with what He's given us and our faithfulness to work even more good. Bless us and those around us with even more and just continue this cycle and this chain until like needs are just met. It's really a powerful, miraculous thing and it happens all the time and we just fail to recognize it. We fail to embrace it. We fail to let it happen because we get stuck in fear and selfishness with what we have. And so if I can summarize what I want you to walk away with today, it's that our God is a provider, and He will meet all of your needs, past, present, future, whether you know you need it or whether not. He will meet them, and He'll meet them on His timing because His timing is also your timing, because His timing is not the timing that we perceive. It's not when we think we need something, but the timing, I'm saying timing a lot, but the timing when we actually need something, He already knows, and that's the timing He works with. So, God is working in your life, and He's going to meet you where you're at. He's going to comfort you through the hard times, but He will meet those needs. Going along with that, too, when He meets your needs, when He gives you seasons of blessing, when He provides, He wants you to partner with Him and He wants to show you how He can use that provision, that blessing, to spread to others as well. And so I'm asking you to consider what in your life that you can use to be a blessing to others, and how God can be working both in your life and through your life. So thank you so much for listening to today's show. Really appreciate all the support. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like it. Make sure you follow the show so you can be updated of new episodes. Be sure to share this with your friends and family. Send them a link to the show either on YouTube or Spotify, or post this on social media. Just, send this and get the word out there to whoever you think could benefit from hearing this. I really appreciate how this show has just been steadily going over time. That when I'm faithful to God in making this show, He blesses the words that I say, He reaches people, and that this show is continuing to have impact. And I want that to keep growing at His pace, of course, but the main way that happens is through you. That when you listen to the show and you share it with more people and they listen and they share it, you're really just helping to grow this community. So we would really appreciate if you sent this along. And thank you so much for doing so. I pray that you all have a God blessed week, that whatever you're facing with in life, you can remember the truths of today, that God is a provider for you, and that you can just spend some time with Him, some quality time with Him this weekend, to really reflect on the ways that He has been providing, both in the past, the present, and how He will in the future. And let that fill you with joy, let that fill you with hope, that even in maybe a difficult circumstances, He's got your back. All right, that's going to be it for this week. So excited to see you guys next week for the finale, where you get to talk about Jesus' resurrection. But thank you so much again for listening. And remember, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another.